We had us a dog. Just a sweet mongrel. You know the kind. Well, in many ways, a good mongrel dog is like your Negro. You get to know it. Often, you get to love it. It is of no particular use, but you keep it around because you think it loves you. If you're lucky, Mr. Edgecombe, you never have to find out any different. My wife and I were not so lucky. Caleb, come here for a second. Come here. Please, son. He still has the one good eye. I suppose he's lucky not to be completely blind. We get down on our knees and thank God for that much at least. Right, Caleb? Okay, go on in now. That dog attacked my boy for no reason. Just got it in his mind one day. Same with John Coffey. He was sorry afterwards. Of that, I have no doubt. But those little girls stayed raped and murdered. Maybe he'd never done it before. My dog never bit before. But I didn't concern myself with that. I went out there with my rifle and grabbed his collar and blew his brains out. Is Coffey guilty? Yes, he is. Don't you doubt it. And don't you turn your back on him. You may get away with it once, or even 100 times. But in the end, you'll get bit.
Context of white supremacy. Gus T Renegade Justice in for another program to share constructive information on the system of white supremacy. That clip from the film The Green Mile. John Coffey played that clip to begin the program. I appreciate honest information just so that we all know what's going on. I have no problem when white people speak honestly about how they feel about black people. And I mean, really, it's obvious. I really don't even need that, but just because there is a lot of confusion and we have refinement, racist woman and racist man, they don't often speak that honestly about their views on black people, non-white people. So yeah, I have no problem with that. I think non-white people, they should keep that in mind. This is the way white people collectively view black people worldwide. I think no more of a black person than a mutt. Killing them, whatever. Keep that in mind. Motivation to end this system as soon as possible. Adjust our conduct with regards to how we relate to white people in all areas of people activity. Moving forward, today's broadcast, today's date, September 15th, Thursday, September 15th, 2011. Our guest for today's broadcast, he joined us a year ago, September 2010. He was a part of the blackout for last summer. One of my favorite guests. Thoroughly enjoyed having him on the program, and surprised it took so long to get him back on the program. I know he's super busy and working on things, but I'm glad we were able to get him back today. And I will let folks know up front if the program, if in any way you're disappointed, if it's not as good as it could have been, that is all my fault. I had an outline I was putting together for the program, and I got it to our guest a little bit later than I wanted, so anything is off with the program, blame Gus. That said, our guest, he is the founder and operator, fantastic website, theghettotimes.com. It's linked in the description for this episode if you're listening at TalkShoe. The address, I'll spell it out, DAGHETTOTYMZ.com. Give it to you one more time. DAGHETTOTYMZ.com. TYMZ.com, theghettotimes.com. Tons of great articles, video articles, very constructive content, and this is someone who is not afraid of using the term white supremacy. Our guest also, in addition to operating the Ghetto Times, prolific author and orator. You can get his book, Analytical Cogitations, also. Great information for Black people on racism, white supremacy, and just to give us better concepts about things that are happening with us, and changing our thought pattern to be a little bit more constructive in dealing with the system of white supremacy. Real pleasure to have him back on the program. I know Justice, she's been pestering to have him back. I think she really enjoyed hearing him as well. Joining us live, and I think I have his name pronounced correctly this time. Only took me a year to get it right. Joining us live, Mr. M'bwebe Ishangi. Mr. Ishangi, are you with us?
Yes, Alafia. Blessings.
For sure. Thank you so much for sharing a bit of your Thursday evening with us. Real pleasure to have you back on the program. Always a pleasure to hear from you. Tons of constructive information last time, and just excited to have you back, sir.
Thank you, brother. And definitely reciprocity forward, man. I appreciate it.
For sure. I'm excited to hop into the content for this evening, but I definitely want you to have opportunity. If you want to tell listeners, if they have not visited the website, if you want to catch them up, anything that you're working on currently, or just anything you would like them to know about you before we move forward.
Sure. One, I just want to give thanks to you, brother, for maintaining the connection and allowing me to reconnect with you and have a dialogue for the diaspora. I don't know how much better I can say how appreciative I am, because it's so many things out here that could be diversions that other people could be doing, opposed to talking about something that's dealing with upliftment and liberation mentally and spiritually and physically. So I definitely appreciate that. We've been working hard over here at DGT. We are in our 18th year. We're looking for some big and better things as we approach our 20th year. I've been working on a couple of things. I've been working on is I just released a series of small books. I just released a book called The Terrorist Factory in commemoration to the 9/11 fiasco, because I'd still think that the U.S. government couldn't be behind it. But not only that, but that it's also some spiritual and metaphysical things that are seem to be entwined with it. In addition to that, I've been working steadfast on releasing my second, I guess you could consider my second big book. That is the book called The Unknown Known, and that's slated to come out spring of 2012. Working on also DGT the Season 4, which we also look to be debuting in the beginning of 2012. And in addition to DGT Digital, which is the digital platform for our magazine, since we've no longer go in print, we're all digital, and we're putting that out later on this fall. So there's a lot of stuff going on, brother, a lot of information that we've been targeting and getting involved with. In particular, there's some things going on with, I don't know if you're familiar with, I'm sure you are, the Jegna and master historian Anthony Browder. He's been doing some excavations, some phenomenal work with the excavation of Karakamun's tomb, which is the last pharaoh of the 25th dynasty, which of whom actually made it very clear that the dynasties, beginning with Dynasty 1 and even predating dynasties, were of African origin. And Brother Browder has been really tapped spiritually to unearth these things so that the diaspora can understand that Kemet is and was and still is African and black. So there's some things that I've been involved with. I've been very blessed to be involved with. And again, I just want to salute you, brother, for giving me the opportunity to share some of these things that I've been exposed to.
Absolutely. And again, check out the website, theghettotimes.com. All that information, you'll be in the know, theghettotimes.com. And Dr. Anthony Browder, October 23rd, he will be visiting the context of white supremacy. Stay tuned. This program, I know when you were with us last time, we touched on a little bit, just trying to cover some of the different articles. You have so much content on your website, and the material that I saw on sugar, very interesting. I learned a ton, and you mentioned the book by William Duffy, Sugar Blues, which I would encourage folks to check out. It's a very informative. You will learn a lot about the history of racist man and racist woman, as well as sugar. White sugar, that's something I picked up from the book. I will be saying white sugar, associating white sugar with white people. All of that stuff is extremely toxic. I even got it in the description. White sugar is the hidden team member on the white supremacist team. I wanted to start with a quote from your site to kind of give it some context for the discussion before we get to all the toxic properties about the drug white sugar, to tie sugar to slavery so that the people that are listening, they have a thorough understanding of how closely related white supremacy and sugar, and you would throw rum in there as well, how closely related those ideas are. This is one of your reports on your website, The History of White Sugar, The Hidden Truth, and you actually have 2 video articles as well as the actual written essays as well. You start off the essay, you say, I'm going to make it clear. This topic will be an ongoing series because this has turned out to be one of the deepest research topics I've come across. At first, I wanted to approach the effects of sugar from a health perspective, but I was soon led to the historical significance white sugar has had on the enslavement of African people. So before I even get into what sugar does to our bodies, I must dive into just how far the greed for this drug has extended, the core nucleus of the Atlantic slave trade. Powerful statement, and it is reaffirmed. William Duffy, he says the same thing in his book. Can you share some of that information with our listeners about the close connection between slavery and white sugar?
Yeah, that was, as I said, I've been dealing with health and really wanting to talk about the effects of health. Didn't really understand how ingenious doctors Neely Fuller and even Francis Quest Welsing were with dealing with the 9 areas of people activity, and with several historians recently adding the element of health to these 10 areas, making it now 10 areas of people activity, and understanding that all this stuff is intertwined. And when I started to study about sugar, I studied it also because it was personal. I used to have a sugar habit, a very, very high intake of sugar as a child. I had my series of, I had my share of cavities. Halloween was, Christmas to me, but I had a lot of Halloweens throughout the year. When I would get a couple, if I get $1, I would not buy $1's worth of, candy. I would buy penny candy. I'd buy 100 pieces and eat them all. Within that day, I was severely addicted to it. And when I came across understanding about health, one of the first topics that I was approached with or exposed to was the impact of what sugar has on your body. And it was a hard thing to swallow because, it tastes so good. And never would you know that something that tastes so sweet could be doing your body so much harm. And in doing that, found that there was a connection to not just what it does to you health-wise, that there's a history, but also that the drive for this addiction has been one of the probably core principles used in the creation of the Ma'angamizi, which some people call the Ma'afa, or the Middle Passage, which has been the enslavement of our African ancestors, and how this has been one of the vital crops used to create slavery. And so not only has it enslaved us physically, but it's enslaved our taste buds. And that was really interesting for me because, I didn't realize that there was so many coincidences, or there was so many incidences where these things were intertwined. So not only were we physically enslaved, but now, there's a historic element to it as far as what we take in orally. So it's interesting to find out that once I was exposed to Neely Fuller's book, William Duffy's book, Sugar Blues, that I found a European that could be so honest about the origin of sugar and its impact. I read several books about sugar, but none has really touched me. None has really got involved into the aspect of enslavement as I found William Duffy has. So it's really interesting when we find out that when we're looking at it, it actually drove me to writing several articles spawning from that. But one of the things that I always wanted to understand was, how did African people get enslaved in the first place, and for what reason, and to find out that also that we were the best physically equipped to maintain the crops of building this or growing this crop is wow, it's mind blowing. You know what I mean? Because sugar is like, people take it for granted, don't even think of it as a killer, but it is the highest addictive element that I've found on the planet, and you would only know so if this element was banned. If sugar was put on the ban list and you couldn't have it, you would find out how addictive it is, because people would literally go crazy without the consumption of it.
Wow. William Duffy, Sugar Blues, he touches on that repeatedly in his book, and it's in everything. I mean, when you really start to study, and we'll cover some of that as we roll in the program, but when you start looking at ingredients, I know before I became really focused on white supremacy, I was big into nutrition and vegan for many years, and when you start looking at labels, you will be stunned at the number of things that sugar is in, and you wouldn't even know it. I mean, wow. But, I mean, with the slavery issue, this is reading directly from Sugar Blues. This is on page 31 in William Duffy's book. Just, to emphasize slavery and sugar hand in hand, he writes, British historian Noel Deere says flatly, "It will be no exaggeration to put the tale and toll of the slave trade at 20 million Africans." I suspect that is probably a low number, of which 2/3 are to be charged against sugar. And just reading, and as you said, he goes into a lot of detail, Mr. Duffy, in talking about how slavery and sugar so closely intertwined that attacking one, it was like you were attacking both. And he has many examples in the book where white people got upset because some other folks decided, well, we're not going to use the sugar that you've produced with slaves. We'll use beet sugar. And they got furious about that and took it as, you are attacking slavery if you don't want our sugar that these slaves have made. If you could give a little bit more on the connection with slavery and sugar, just so that listeners really understand that this was a huge part that I don't think people even think about slavery being, wow, the addiction to sugar, man, has a big part in why we've been abused by white people.
Yeah, it's deep, because when you think about, originally it was about, the European, once they started leaving Europe, or, when they started crossing the seas and going into different elements of the New World in the Caribbean, they started being exposed to new, first of all, they were exposed to African people, number one. They got to see that, okay, these are people that are doing things that we never even thought of. They're civilized, and of course, it's something with, and I think it's and I'm sure we're going to bring his name up again, but Layla Africa talks about melanin, and even Carol Barnes talks about the lack of melanin makes you think a certain way. It makes you think of a more destructive element as far as your mind, what you think about as far as, and you're not as in harmony when you think about Europe and being in a cold climate, not a lot of vegetation, not a lot of melanin, and you're looking at Europeans and what did they have to idolize or what do they have to mimic is the animals. So, you pretty much have a beast that doesn't understand how to be harmonious with nature. So when now they're in an element where they're seeing it's a warmer climate, you're seeing vegetation, you're seeing flowers, plants, spices, herbs that you've never even ever thought could fathom of even existing. And obviously you have an affinity towards it to the point of greed. To find out that slavery, it's possible that the concept of slavery wasn't based upon, I just want to enslave black folk, but that I want to control sugar. I want to get this element and control it and make profit off of it, which shows that Europeans lacked the ability to be one with nature as far as it's about borrowing, not so much taking and pretty much abusing. That they were more so about taking this sugar. And they first started using the red man to, they thought the red man would be strong enough to, or the Indian, what people erroneously call, to basically be able to take care of this crop. But they soon found that African people were more suitable for the climate, for the amount of work that needed to be done to create this crop and keep it going. That it got to the point where sugar became such a high in demand, they needed more Africans to cultivate this land. And with that, as we found in the history of Europeans, that they abused the land so much to the point where they exhausted, where it's no longer able to, keep procreating these crops, is that now the price of sugar went up, and to the point where sugar became almost desolate as far as you really couldn't find it anywhere. And now they were left with, okay, well, if we can't create a lot of sugar, then let's put the emphasis now on Africans. Let's start selling African people opposed to just selling sugar. Let's sell Africans. And that's pretty much how you find how it kind of just switched over from being a product of, a natural habitat like growing from beets and sugar cane, to now taking actual human beings and say, okay, well, let's use them as a crop and let's sell them as a product. And that's what's really scary about it, because it shows you the addiction that, with any consumption. And then when I talk about sugar, is that sugar has it is not prejudice. It doesn't matter what color you are. If you consume it, you will become a victim of it. And that's one thing that, I guess Europeans didn't understand, because they have now, when we look at today's standards and what sugar is in, which is practically everything, we understand that this is how the hospital administrations operate today. They base their finances, their profits on you being sick. So that's why they push these different products. That's why you see these commercials, these endorsements on TV, these commercials about quote-unquote soft drinks or candy or sugar-coated cereal or things of that nature, because they are pushing death, which means profit for them. And this is just another upgraded format of enslavement. You know what I mean? And it's really deep, because it's almost to the point where sugar has become the oppressor, opposed to not just Europeans, but actually sugar's the oppressor. It's being obviously ushered by Europeans, but they themselves are victims to it. And I don't have any love for that. I'm not losing any love for that. At the same time, they're not, it's not like they can't be affected by it as well.
Context of white supremacy. As I said at the very beginning, white sugar, hidden team member on the white supremacist team. I want to, in just William Duffy's book, he has a great term that I want to get to, but Justice, she was really excited about having you back on the program. As I said, she really enjoyed hearing from you last year. I know she has some questions as well. Before I hit our line, I just want to give another passage from William Duffy's book, because his book, so much information he shows where a lot of white people, many white people, they were very informed. This is a poison. They knew this, and they were still, whatever, we're just going to make our money and mistreat these black people while doing it. This is on page 42 of his book, William Duffy, Sugar Blues. According to Dr. Robert Bosler, a New Jersey dentist, in 1912, modern manufacturing of sugar has brought about entirely new diseases. The sugar of commerce is nothing else but concentrated crystallized acid. If in former times sugar was so costly that only the wealthy could afford to use it, it was, from the national economic standpoint, of no consequence. But today, when, because of its low cost, sugar has caused a degeneration of the people, it is time to insist on a general enlightenment. The loss of energy through the consumption of sugar in the last century and the first decade of this century can never be made good, as it has left its mark on the race. Alcohol has been used for thousands of years and has never caused the degeneration of a whole race. Alcohol does not contain destructive acids. What has been destroyed by sugar is lost and cannot be recovered. White sugar, that's what he's saying. I'll just repeat that one sentence. White sugar has caused a degeneration of the people. And this was in 1912. So you can only imagine how that has magnified 100 years later with all the easy access to sugar that we have now. Justice, if you have some questions for Mr. Ishangi, your line should be open. Please feel free.
Greetings, Mr. Ishangi. I'm very glad for you to be back on the program to talk about foods or sugar. How much sugar is too much sugar, and how does having too much sugar affect your heart?
Okay, very, very good question, and always good to talk to you. First, let me just say this, that we must be clear about what sugar is. One is, it's sugar that, because someone will think that, oh, you're talking about sugar that's also found in fruits. That's different. What we're talking about is refined sugar. Refined sucrose is what it's really called, refined sucrose. And refined sucrose goes through a process. And this process deals with bleaching because initially, it's a brown colored. Even some people think, well, can I eat brown sugar? No, brown sugar is nothing but white sugar and molasses. Molasses is not good as well. We're talking about refined sucrose. We're not talking about natural sugars that you find from sugar cane, beets or almonds or, other natural fruits. We're not talking about that kind of sugar. The other thing is, when we're talking about sugar also is any sugar acid.
Are you there, Mr. Ishangi?
I'm sorry. Can you hear me? I'm sorry. I made a mistake and touched the mute button. But any refined. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. I'm sorry. So any refined sugar intake is not good for the body. I'm going to go on that in 1 second, but I just want to say one thing, what Brother Gus was saying. Sugar was also used effectively in the Vietnam War. There was, in 1965, there was an interview that William Duffy had, and he was East Japanese philosopher had said that if you really expect to conquer the North Vietnamese, you must drop Army PX on them, sugar, candy, and Coca-Cola. That will destroy them faster than bombs. And it's not a coincidence when you look at recently, even in Japan, or China rather, they've spoken about the obesity rates. They're talking about diabetes now being in certain indigenous cultures that before their influence with American businesses are now developing these health ailments because they're inducing McDonald's, Pepsi, Coca-Cola products. These are basically tools of mass destruction. Now, you asked the question of how much sugar is too much sugar, and as I alluded to, is that any consumption of that is bad because anything white, and it just so happens that I'm not making this up, but nutritionally it has no value. When you're looking at white flour, white sugar, you're looking at dairy, white people, these things are not good for the human body to consume. And it's because they are what's called zero carbohydrates. Your body is a system. It's like a computer that needs. I don't know how to really explain it, but your body knows how to do certain things and needs certain things to run. So let me give you an example of what happens when you do not give your body what it needs and in place gives it something it shouldn't have. If you consume candy and soda and white rice and white flour, white bread, and have poor diets, which most Africans in America have in the ghetto, what happens is your body, over time, your body's able to produce certain elements, vitamins, all the vitamins and the minerals that your body needs. It also produces it in its own reserves. So, for instance, if you eat a meal that has white rice, and it has no carbohydrates, and you're not giving your body what it needs, what happens is your body will take it from its own reserves. So it still needs vitamin C, it needs vitamin B12, it needs these certain vitamins, but if you don't give it to them in food, your body will take it from its own reserves. Now, over a period of certain amount of years of you not giving it what it needs and the body having to take it from its own self, eventually its own reserves will become depleted. There'll be nothing there left. Now, if there's nothing there left, that is what the real term of acquired immune deficiency syndrome is, AIDS. AIDS is when your immune system becomes deficient. When your body is no longer able to produce the certain elements that it needs because you weren't giving it to your body, now it starts to eat itself alive. It turns on itself. So this is what, when we're talking about diet and we're looking at, especially in the American African community, we see, number one, obesity is just ridiculously high, especially in African women. In addition to that, we don't work out, we don't sweat, we don't do physical activity. We figure once you're out of high school and, you just live your life, and in addition to the hard times of life of working, trying to find work and all these different things to make ends meet, the last thing you're thinking about is eating a good meal. You're going to eat what you can and what you can afford. Not to mention, it doesn't help that you have McDonald's and Wendy's and Burger King with these dollar menus, which is obviously selling you stuff that's not good for you, selling you garbage. So this is what happens, and this is systematic. This is something that is not done by coincidence. This is something that was done purposely, because if you want to get into the conspiratorial aspect of it, when you look at the Illuminati or in global white supremacy, one of the things that they call the rest of the world. Now, let's put this into context. The global elite is really 1% of 1% of the whole population of the planet. Okay, everyone else they consider useless eaters. And that also includes their own people. So they're not afraid to enslave their own selves, their own kind. So it's not just a target against African people, but I will say that the origin and the root of it is, if you can keep African people down, you keep everybody else down. So now you have the global elite that purposely push out bad product for you to eat in hopes that you consume it, and then you will get sick, and guess where you'll go for assistance when you have ailments? You'll go to them. So you'll go to the hospital administration, with cancers, with tumors, malnutrition, and even on a smaller scale, depression. Depression, they say that sugar intake rids the body of vitamin B12. And vitamin B12 is the key element that's key in keeping your sanity. So when you see a person that is depressed, even suicidal, That's because they are low in vitamin B12, and more than likely they have a high sugar intake in their body. And high sugar intake doesn't mean you're just taking sugar and putting it in your mouth. You're eating jelly, you're eating white bread, as I mentioned, you're drinking soda, you're drinking fruit juices that really ain't no fruit juices, really, sucrose and fructose and what's the other thing that they're trying to pass by? Oh, gosh, it's slipping me right now. I saw a commercial the other day, and they were trying to say that this high fructose corn syrup, they're trying to say that high fructose corn syrup is the new sugar, and it's actually more healthier than sugar, and that is a true lie.
Real corn sugar.
Yeah, corn sugar is the worst. I mean, corn consumption is bad for your body. So there's so many things that the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, are telling you and making you think that the 4 basic food groups, the food pyramid, is what you should follow. And in actuality, if you do follow it, it's going to lead you to an early grave. And the Layer of Africa has laid that out many a time. So, I mean, it's really, to get into dealing with sugar is to deal with health. And when you're dealing with sugar, you got to also deal with the other elements of it, because sugar is it's in practically everything. It's in soup. It's in potato chips. Obviously, it's not just in sweet things. It's in vinegar. It's in so many things, and it's not just. It doesn't say sugar when you read the ingredients. First of all, when you want to buy something and you're looking at the elements, or the ingredients, if it's like 10, 15, 20 different elements, you shouldn't eat it. It should be simple. It should be like 4 or 5 different elements to make up what that food substance is. Also, if you see anything that ends with the OS, like OSE, fructose, sucrose, these are different scientific names for sugar. So there's so many things that, I mean, I can get into. There's a company called the IFF, the International Flavor Foundation. Their corporation is right out here in New Jersey, off the New Jersey Turnpike. And what they do is they take, these are chemists, scientists, biochemists that take clear liquid to make it taste like anything. So you'll have a clear liquid, they can pour it over a tire, and you think you're eating lobster or you're eating grapes. And these things are laced with high doses of sugar to dull the senses, and that's the other point I want to make out, and then because I get on my tangents, but the one thing about sugar, what it does is it dulls your taste buds. It's a sedative. It's an opiate. And once you take it, it dulls the neurotransmitters in your taste buds, so you don't even realize what you're tasting. So it becomes now, and people say, well, it tastes so good. You don't even know what food really tastes like because your neurotransmitters are pretty much high. So it's really deep about this concoction and how they've used this to, keep people physically enslaved in addition to keeping African people mentally enslaved. But I can go on too.
Okay. I just wanted to say that what you said was like a thumbs up. And I heard like you were talking about like the food pyramid, and like you should not follow it. I agree. I wrote I wrote my thoughts, and that you shouldn't follow the food pyramid. I typed it on my blog, and my blog is justdojustice.blogspot.com. Again, that is justdojustice.blogspot.com. And once you go there, click racism, white supremacy, and the food pyramid, and it will share my thoughts. You should not follow the food pyramid. And I talk about it a lot more. And so back to the questions. My next question is, why do you think sugar is put in almost everything?
Well, to me, I think it's definitely about, let's paint this scenario. When we're looking at global white supremacy, it is all about profit and control. As I mentioned earlier, They pretty much view the rest of the world as useless eaters. It's not to the point where they want to kill us all, but they will definitely want to kill us all slowly. They have this infatuation about thinking that the world is not large enough to populate to feed everybody. And it's not even just that; it's just that they want it for themselves. I don't know if you've heard about, with the Global 2000 report, which was put out during the Carter administration period, where they called for the slaughter of 2 billion people by the year 2000. Carter was a president around the late 1970s. Not soon after did you find the origin of AIDS and a couple of other man-made diseases that started killing people off. And their claim is that the planet isn't large enough for this many people. There's another infatuation with 2012, and there's a movement of trying to eliminate so many people to where there's roughly 144,000 people. And, of course, these 144,000 people will not be of African ancestry, but they look at it for it to be that elite, the 1% of the 1%. And with that said, we find that the whole concept of global white supremacy is based upon greed, control, and the reason why sugar has been so effectively used is because it not only does it kill you slowly, but it allows them to make a profit off of you. If you think about the hospital administration, if you go back 100 years, when doctors, there wasn't hospitals, there were doctors that made house calls. They came to your house. Today it is an administration. You have jobs that are called hospital administrators. You can go to college and get a degree in hospital administration. That's because it's how do you run a hospital? Well, the thing is, if people are well, there's no need for a hospital. So when you're talking about people that are eating right, if they're eating from the land, if they know the herbs and the spices that they should be eating, if they're eating vegetation opposed to eating decayed flesh, which is meat, if they're not eating liquid meat, which is eggs and milk and the way it's created in the slaughterhouses, they would have longer lifespans, they would have clearer minds, they would be less agitated, less violent, and more productive as far as not only in their lives but as spiritual people. This is how we were before colonialism, and they understand that they don't want us to get back to that because if we were, there'd be no use for them. There'd be no way that they could both enslave us and make a profit off of us. So, again, the reason why they do put sugar in everything is because they are allowed to make, it allows them to make profit, it allows them to make money, it allows them to keep people in hospital beds. It allows them to create these facade foundations that's allegedly looking for cures for cancer and AIDS, and all they're doing is, just galvanizing money to put in the stock and make more money off of. Meanwhile, you have people that actually need help but don't understand, because even in the educational system, they don't teach us. They no longer, I don't even think if they ever taught us what right foods to eat. From day one, when you think about it, when you were in school, the first thing they were thinking about when they taught you about eating food, they taught you about eating, again, the pyramid, the food pyramid. And in that food pyramid, you have dairy, you have eggs, you have meat, you have these different things that do more damage to the body than good. So again, I see it as, it's definitely a ploy to both make a profit, an indefinite profit, and also a slow death. And this is something that has been repeated generation after generation because, we're not farmers anymore. Before, if you had your own home, you would, farm and you would grow your own food, and therefore you knew exactly what you were putting in your body. Even in the organic sector, you really don't know. There is no perfect food anymore. I mean, we learned that from Monsanto and them basically patenting seeds. So now you can't even control. They're making food that can't replenish itself. So and these are organizations, corporations that are owned by white people. So again, this is just, to me, I think they are living up to what they really are. They are anti-nature, anti-God, anti-balance, anti-ma'at. This is their nature, and it's unfortunate that enough people don't see this and haven't fought against it and bring back the balance. But I think in time that will come.
High fructose corn syrup is a pretty popular ingredient found in a lot of foods. Well, that's what I've noticed. Can you please share some more information on high fructose corn syrup?
On corn syrup? Corn syrup is
high fructose corn syrup. High fructose.
High fructose corn syrup is, and I think here's the thing, with people that there's a movement of people that have, I'd say over the last maybe 15, close to 20 years, with Whole Foods and all these other organic sectors sprouting up, people have been becoming a little bit more aware of what they're putting in their body. There's one author that I think, if you haven't never heard of, his name is John Robbins, I believe his name is, and he is the son of Baskin Robbins, who creates 31 flavors ice cream. Well, his son, the founder of Baskin Robbins, his son John, I believe his name again, he basically broke away from his father's empire. He totally went against it. He's written several books on health. His latest book escapes me right now, but he's done phenomenal work as a European in exposing how bad food is, the consumption of it, and have also given alternatives. Now he's also written about high fructose corn syrup. Now the thing about high fructose corn syrup is, because sugar, well, not even just sugar, but there have been things that there have been derivatives of sugar now, because there are people that are diabetic. They created sweet and low, and they created aspartame, and all these other new quote unquote good sugars, when in actuality they're worse. And I can attest to that. I at one time, having given up sugar, was told to try aspartame, and I started taking aspartame, and immediately started having pain in my joints and my knees. Having later read that aspartame attacks your joints immediately, and it could break down your joints to the point where you would definitely your bones will become brittle quicker than white sugar. So you have all these different kinds of new sugars that are coming out, and then here comes high fructose corn syrup. Now the coincidence of this is the consumption of corn isn't really all that good for you, and it also is a destructive element for the planet. It's been depleting it's really been eroding a lot of the soil on the planet. There's a couple of documentaries out there talking about corn and its effect on the world and also on the human body. But now you have this high fructose corn syrup that's supposed to be the new sugar, come to find out that this is even more detrimental to your health. So, and then you're finding, I think I mentioned earlier, there's a commercial out right now where there's a guy that's speaking about high fructose, and I think it's some popsicles or whatever, and they're saying, the body doesn't know the difference between sugar and high fructose corn syrup. Yes, it does. But because you aren't aware, because they are playing on the world's ignorance of not knowing what food is to body, gas is to cars, food is to the body. We don't understand that ratio, that relationship. We're accepting whatever they tell us on TV. So there's a lot of things that we need to understand about what our body actually needs opposed to what it craves. Because a lot of things that our body craves are unnatural, are things that we adopted from this society, and it isn't something that's actually good for us. It's actually shaving off years of our lifespan, and more importantly, it's keeping us mentally and spiritually destitute. because it has a mental and spiritual impact on us as well. As I mentioned before, sugar rids the body of vitamin B12, and that's a key element to your sanity. So it's really deep about these new elements. And that I would say for those that are looking for alternatives, I first was saying using agave, which has been an alternative, but now I found that too much of any kind of sugar isn't good for your body. So really, to be honest, we need to get used to not having so many sweets in our diet. We need to get back to the green vegetation of, eating kale and eating spinach and eating, these green leafy vegetables, and also eating the fruits and these different things, opposed to eating high sugar and also salted foods when you're talking about processed foods. That's another thing that we need to get rid of our diet. But again, if you read Layla Africa, he wrote a book called Nutricide. He really broke it down, and he also wrote he wrote a couple books, but the one that really sticks out to me is Nutricide. It's a very good book that you should read.
I just wanted to say that Dr. Layla Africa, I believe he has been on this program. And what else was I going to say? Oh, yeah, and then one way to not eat those sweets is to not and stop celebrating the white people's superstitions, the holidays.
Mm-hmm.
My next question is, I read that high fructose corn syrup was going to start being called real corn sugar, which it really isn't.
Mm-hmm.
Seems like you may have heard this too. What are some other name changes you're familiar with?
Well, I have heard about that regarding fructose. And again, that's also because the FDA, again, you got to look at it like this. It's when you look at how global white supremacy operates, they have a marketing team, they have a legal team, they have research teams. They go out and see what people are doing that could be counterproductive to the promotion of their product. And because people are becoming aware, not enough African people, but there's a lot of white folk that are becoming aware of, the relationship of how food is being produced these days. And they're, galvanizing. Again, you have these food co-ops, you have things like Whole Foods, and not that Whole Foods is all that great, but they are an alternative, services an alternative to the average supermarket. You're starting to see, homegrown food. You're starting to see the promotion of local farmers, and they're accepting their foods. But what I do see in regards to that, other names are coming up strategically so that they could try to throw you off. And this is the thing, how they prey on our ignorance. I mean, and this is one thing I think is so paramount that I think African people in particular should understand, that in Kemet, erroneously called Egypt, written on the pyramids, it was a sin to be ignorant. You know what I mean? Here, ignorance is bliss. And, global white supremacy actually breeds off of this ignorance. So for someone to go even to an organic store and buy food, and when you look at the ingredients, you're seeing words that you can't even pronounce, yet you still consume it, proves that what they're doing is effective. For one, if you can't pronounce it, you don't need to indulge it. It shouldn't be in your body. Two, the whole game of understanding what global white supremacy is setting out to do is to confuse you. So I realized this, and I think it was 2003, when the U.S. government and the Food and Drug Administration, and the organic clique merged. And now what you see on organic foods is a USDA logo. That tells you right there that the United States government, the Food and Drug Administration, and the organic sector are in bed together. So there is no perfect food. And so you pretty much got to pick your poison. Unless you can grow your own, you pretty much got to pick your poison. And with that said, you must become educated. You must know what you're eating. You must know what the elements are. And to be honest, to be really honest, it could be all eradicated if you made your diet simple. We need to get back to cooking. We need to get back to we need to refrain from eating frozen, processed, canned foods, because that's where you get a lot of high salt, which attributes to our high blood pressure. These are things, when you're eating canned goods, they're not good. They're canned bads, really. When you're looking at what sugar does and how much sugar is put into certain things, I mean, when I saw that sugar was in the bag of potato chips and it didn't even taste sweet, it just threw me off. I was like, wow, like sugar is in everything. It's in ketchup. It's in so many different things. So now you really got to basically say to yourself, what does my body need? My body needs these certain elements. How can I get it? Okay, I can get it from eating, a raw diet, a semi-raw diet, but definitely a vegetarian diet, which does not include dairy, cheeses, milks, white breads, anything white flour. You can have a diet like that and still get everything you need in your body. Now, you might not feel like you have the choice, the amount of choices that you have. I suffer from, being raised eating really everything, from the rooter to the tutor on the hog. When I smell bacon, sometimes I reminisce and my mouth waters, but I know it's not good for me. And that's the thing, is that you really have to, a good example is when you look at Hershey Marquette. Hershey Marquette is erroneously called the Sphinx, and it is a symbol of a man and a lion. And, our ancestors in Kemet knew that there were no half man, half lion walking around, but that it was symbolic. And the symbol of the king of the beasts is the lion. And that beast is your lower self. So if you can suppress your lower self, if you can control your urges to eat, to indulge in whatever that is not good for yourself, then you will be able to deify yourself and be on a level of God. That's why you have the face of the bust of Pharaoh Khafre. So that's what it's really all about, is understanding that here on earth, you can make your own choices, but you got to deal with your repercussions. So the question is, can you deal with eliminating those things that everyone else is eating? Financially it's cheaper. You keep more in your pocket when you get $1 meal. But at the same time, when you get in your 30s, 40s, 50s, you're going to have certain ailments where you're going to need to go visit a hospital, so that's going to cost you. So either pay for it now or you pay for it later, and paying for it later is much more painful, both in the pocket and physically. So, it's really about educating yourself, understanding what your body needs, taking the time out to take interest in what you're putting in your body. And the other key thing that I want to mention is that we fail to realize that we will put the best gasoline, we'll put the best kind of washers, or we'll use the best elements to maintain a car, right? We'll put the best wax, keep it shining and all that. But we'll put the best oil, we'll change the oil, we'll do everything we need to do to maintain our car and make sure that its insides are running well. But we can't do the same thing for ourselves. We can't make sure that our body is getting the best foods. We'll put whatever we want to put in and expect to have amazing production and results, because that's the concept. We need to really start rearranging our concept of what is good, what is best for ourselves. So it takes deprogramming yourself, and a lot of people aren't willing to do that.
Agreed. Learn to take care of yourself before you do anything else.
That's right. That's all you got.
You were talking I was about to talk about this, but you were saying like do not use do not buy foods that you like. If you look in the ingredients, like you would see words that you can't even pronounce. There's if you are familiar with the substance called carrageenan, can you share some information on carrageenan and also called Chandras crispus, whatever that's called? I don't know what it is, but it's like Chandras crispus.
I haven't really ever heard of carrageenan. I'm actually looking it up right now. It's a gel. Is that what it is? Oh, wait,
Yes.
I'm seeing, yeah. Carrageenan is an element that's found in soy products. Red seaweed. To be honest, I haven't really heard of carrageenan. I apologize about that. It's a byproduct of an algae or seaweed. That's what I'm reading here. It's used in everything from ice cream to, one second here, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's an element that's used in everything from ice cream. It's used to make foods like vegetarian marshmallows to jelly or stabilized ice cream. I'd have to look into this because I'm not sure. I've never heard of this element. And I would say this too, with that said, not to give it a bad rap, but anything that I find, any foods that I find that are made to taste like something that originally isn't good for you, for instance, as I said, it's made to use in making quote unquote vegetarian ice cream. Well, ice cream isn't good for you. So if you have this thing called carrageenan and it's used to make a vegetarian version of it, it might not be that good for you either, especially if it has soy in it. That's one thing that I found with the vegan/vegetarian diet is soy is more lethal. You're better off eating meat opposed to eating soy because soy has been causing a lot of cancers. It causes tumeric cancer in women. It is shown to young men have started to develop breasts. It is really not a good product, and that's because soy is in practically 90% of the vegetarian diet of processed foods. So again, as mentioned before, with these new elements, you're better off, pretty much using whole foods. Potatoes, greens, beans, things of that nature that isn't merged with any kind of, new concoction to make it taste like something you used to eat. That's no longer good for you.
Okay. So you aren't familiar with the carrageenan, right?
Well, just from what I've just read right now, I mean, I've never heard that name until now, but I'm seeing it now, and from just a little bit I've just skimmed over from right now, and it says it comes from an algae or a seaweed, which is, I guess it's fine to use it as it's a thickening agent in place of animal-based products, as they're saying, like a gelatin. But again, I'd have to look into what it actually, is. You know what I mean? Because as at one point in time they were saying soy was good for you, but there's certain bonding, not soy, TVP, which is textured vegetable protein, and that was supposed to be a meat substitute. Come to find out that that's soy, and that's not good for you. So I'd have to look into that more to give you an honest response to that. But so far, I will say a flag is up, mainly because it's not a natural food. It says it comes from algae or seaweed, but obviously it's extracted and turned into something else.
I see. Okay, I just wanted to say that if you look at the ingredients on toothpaste, carrageenan is often in there. Yeah.
Is that vegetarian toothpaste or is that fluoridated toothpaste? Is that the average on the market toothpaste, or
it just depends. Like I would usually see it like well, it's in a lot of toothpaste, so like even if it's like with like if it's not fluoride a toothpaste, then it would also be in there. Like if it is fluoride toothpaste, then it would also be in there. If it's and like if like some toothpaste, like they don't even have carrageenan or fluoride, so it really just depends. But what you said, carrageenan is like something. It's to thicken things.
Yeah, I'm seeing. I'm sorry. Go
and
ahead.
I bet glue. Well, I bet carrageenan is also in glue because glue is pretty thick.
I'm seeing here that they're also associating it with Irish moss and any other thickening agents. So, yeah, I would look into it more. And the whole toothpaste thing is another thing. That's what I'm saying. Is like we need to become more aware of what it is that we're consuming, because even toothpaste, some of that gets swallowed. And with if you're using fluoridated toothpaste, and that's the thing. Like what about sugar is, fluoride and also sugar actually depletes calcium. As they'll tell you that, well, if you drink milk, it'll, make your bones strong. It actually does the complete opposite. So does fluoride, and so does sugar. It's funny how I always wondered why they called soda soft drinks when it was carbonated. It wasn't soft down the throat. It would pretty much burn your throat if you just guzzled it down. Come to find out what it really is, a soft drink, because it makes your bones soft. And this is the thing, a clear indication of that is if sugar-laced products, candy, soda, these things can give your teeth, if it can rot your teeth and give your teeth cavities, teeth are bones. So if it's doing it to your teeth, imagine what it's doing to the rest of your skeletal makeup. You know what I mean? So it's something that people don't, it's 1 and 1 equals 2, but we don't think of that equation. We don't associate them together, and that's the reason why we're developing all these ailments. And people will say, well, I have high blood pressure because it's hereditary. No, it's not hereditary. The reason why you have bad health issues is because you're eating the same things that your parents ate. If you broke off and ate your own, I'm a true testament of that. I have in my family people that have high blood pressure and obesity and diabetes. I don't have it. Why? Because I don't eat the same foods that they eat. It is not hereditary. The only thing that's hereditary is the habit and the ignorance. So that's something as well. It takes, it doesn't take in a special person to do it. It just takes someone that really cares about what they're doing to themselves, what they're doing to their mind, body, and spirit. And when you want to take control and responsibility of that, then you will find these answers.
And also, well, I think, what I've noticed is that, like, in toothpaste, like, they, like, for the children's toothpaste, like, they would make the children's toothpaste, like, sweet. And then usually, like, children would want to swallow it. And, I mean, you can see that you're not supposed to swallow toothpaste because the ingredients in there, once you swallow it, it can cause problems to your body.
Exactly.
So, and I just wanted to say, like, do not drink soda, because I saw an experiment. If you put a tooth in some soda, it rots the tooth. You just get like like let's say if your tooth fell out, then just grab your tooth, get some soda, and then put it in there. It starts rotting the tooth. It starts breaking down the tooth, and then when it rots it, you'll have no more teeth to chew on. I mean, to chew.
There was an experiment done also with a tin nail. They put a tin nail in a cup of soda. I think it was Coca-Cola, and that's the other thing about Coca-Cola, because Coca-Cola originally put cocaine. It was a cocaine-laced drink when it first came out, and it still, I think, still does put cocaine in it, but they've changed it to Coca-Cola. But that's another story. But they would put a tin nail in a glass of Coca-Cola, and it would be gone in hours. It would just dissipate. And that's the deep thing about it. If it does that to a tin nail, or if it does it to what, as you mentioned, then imagine, if it does that to a tooth, imagine what it does to your body. And that's the thing about food that we have not been taught, is that your taste buds is one thing, but after it passes your taste buds, and this is why companies, like as I mentioned, the IFF, the International Flavoring Foundation, this is why they're so effective, because they can make anything taste like whatever you want it to be, but it doesn't necessarily mean it is good for your body. So once it passes your taste buds, once that good taste passes your mouth, and goes down your throat, it's pure destruction. It's pure destruction. It's not immediate in most cases. In most cases, it's a slow death. And that's why people believe that, I'm supposed to live to be 65, and when I turn 40, I'm supposed to have these, pains in my back, pains in my knees, pains in my, no, you're not supposed to. You can age gracefully. You don't have to die a slow death, but that's what they, pretty much put in our heads to believe, and we follow suit. We believe that, okay, well, once I'm 18, 20, I don't need to work out anymore. I don't need to sweat. I don't need to, detox myself. And detoxification is one of the best elements, the best elements as far as cleaning your body and enabling your body to be able to heal itself, is if you get these detoxifications out of yourself. You have to sweat. You have to drink water. If you're not doing these things, you're not allowing your body to regenerate itself. This has nothing to do about youth. This is something you could do into your elderly years. And our ancestors lived this way, but because we've been cut off, we don't know these things. We've forgotten, and we've forgotten, and we've forgotten.
And that is why a lot of black people are getting very sick, dying, and going to the hospital.
Yep.
I do not have anything else to say. Well, I do have more questions, but I'm gonna let the callers and Gus ask questions and share their thoughts, because I've been talking for a while. Yeah.
Thank you.
Context of white supremacy. I see some of the folks, they have questions. I'll hit the phone lines. Give me a couple minutes and I'll hit the phone lines. If you're on TalkShoe, it's *8. The folks on Free HD, it should be *6. I see Young Chad already said he has a question. Got you, sir. I wanted to make sure, and just for importance for black people, I think statistics that I've seen, and these could be false, but statistics I've seen, black people in the area of the world known as the United States, I think they said the diabetes rate, it's 1 out of every 2 black people in this area of the world suffering from diabetes, which is, that's just shameful, total disgrace. And white people are most to blame for that, their diet and what we've been subjected to. Just some of the information, this is from Sugar Blues, in terms of the damage that sugar does. I just was stunned when I read this and wanted to make sure I shared it with listeners. This is on page 74. By 1662, sugar consumption in England had zoomed from 0 to some 16 million pounds a year. This in little over 2 centuries. Then, in 1665, was swept by a plague. More than 30,000 people died that September. Since only one pest house or hospital existed for the entire city, sick people were locked up in their homes, under guard, behind doors painted with huge red crosses. Others fled the city. Everything ground to a halt. While swarms of quacks sold worthless potions and pills, Learned physicians used knives and burning caustic to lance the underarms and groin swellings. When their surgery did more harm than good, and the doctors themselves became infected, they stopped that treatment. In a year, the epidemic ran its course. The plague was named after its most obvious symptom, the swelling, or buboes, and became known as the bubonic plague, the swelling plague, the plague of boils. People who lived in the country virtually without white sugar seemed to escape the plague. Had anyone called it city sugar plague, they might have been denounced as menaces to commerce and crown and strung to a gibbet. This is pages 74 and 75 of Sugar Blues. William Duffy, he used the term anti-nutrient for sugar, and saying that it actually, I think you touched on this already, that it leaches nutrients from the body, not just it doesn't take anything, it doesn't have any nutrients by when you consume it, but it actually takes away from your body having to process this drug. And in the book, he talks about how you would do better if you were starving, you didn't have any food, you would do better to eat nothing as opposed to consuming sugar. And I just wondered if you could share a few thoughts on that.
Yeah, it is deep because white sugar, pretty much robs the body, of all elements. I mean, all nutrients, especially chromium, zinc, calcium, as I mentioned before, vitamin C, and the whole B complex. And it destroys, also destroys food digestion in the mouth, the stomach, and the small intestines, and the pancreas. And this is how the body processes food. So if it's destroying these enzymes, then your body can't even produce or take away. And this is the relationship that the intestines, for example, has with your body. Is if you're eating, and you say, for instance, you have a salad and it goes through your intestines, your small intestines basically pulls out the nutrients and puts it into the bloodstream, and that's how it gets dispersed around the body. Now, if you couple that with sugar in addition to eating decayed flesh, which is, again called meat, the intestines, because of the meat already decaying, already dying. If you were to give you an example of meat. If you were to put a piece of meat out in the sun on an 80-degree or 90-degree day, in a couple hours, you take a look at it and see what's coming out of it. You're going to see all kinds of maggots and all kinds of other disgusting living organisms that are coming out of this meat. Now, this same thing is inside your body because your body is 98.6 degrees consistently. So meat takes at least 8 hours to digest. So if you have this meat in your system taking 8 hours to go through your small and enlarged intestines, what gets created is a slick film, and this film covers your intestines. Well, if this slick film is covering the intestines, it's prohibiting your intestines from pulling out the nutrients that it needs. In addition to having sugar, the enzymes that are used that go to work to pull out the nutrients from the food that you eat have even double work to do because they have to fight through the film, and now they have sugar because there's lesser number of them. So your body's getting nothing. So you're eating an element with sugar that has zero carbohydrates, has no nutritional value, and in addition to it having no nutritional value, it is able to delete the workers in your body that goes out and seeks out the nutrition. So it's like it does two things, and it's really deadly. It's really, really deadly. So, it's something that, again, I didn't learn this in school. I learned this in education, in grade school or even high school, not even in college. It's something that you really have to go outside of the educational system and find out for yourself, or, again, you tune into Brother Gus's radio station, or you read you read William Duffy's book, or you log on to theghettotimes.com. The information is out there, but it's not something that they want the masses to know, because if that were the case, then you would definitely see the need less for doctors and definitely hospitals. So it's really it's crazy. It's really deep how deeply rooted global white supremacy goes, because they've attacked it from all perspectives, and that's the thing that we have to realize, is that global white supremacy isn't about just lynching black people. It's definitely about going after you, mind, body, and spirit. This is what they do. This is what they've been doing.
I could not agree more. Yes, sir.
I'm just throwing one more thing too. I was just reading it. If you were to take a 12-ounce can of soda, regular can of soda, has 10 teaspoons of white sugar. That's like 10 candy bars. Pizza has sugar in it. So there's so many things, like not only, and we're thinking we're taking small doses, it tastes a little sweet. We're having large quantities, as you mentioned about how many pounds of consumption that we have a year. We're having large consumptions of sugar. We are well over the even safe, if there was a safe level. We're well past it. You know what I mean? And we're doing this every year. So imagine every day when you get up in the morning for breakfast, you're having sugar-laced orange juice, you're having sugar-laced cereal, oatmeal, you're having white flour in your bread, your toast, bagel, what have you. You're having butter, which is, from decayed flesh cows. Then for lunch you're having decayed flesh meat in a sandwich, more white bread. Then you're going to have fruit juice, soda. It just goes on. Then you have dinner. You're doing these things, not just a little bit of sugar here and there, not to mention the snacks, the chewing gum. And this is the one thing I want to also say, too, that was brought to my attention by Anthony Browder, is chewing gum. Chewing gum is lethal, especially if you chew gum on an empty stomach. Because what happens when you chew gum is you get this saliva. The saliva that you get from chewing gum, this saliva is supposed to be used to break down the food. So when you're chewing gum and you swallow, and those enzymes, that saliva is enzymes that goes into your intestines and is looking for food to break down. Well, if there's nothing in your stomach, then the saliva ferments and turns into acid. And over time, all this acid turns into tumors and all other negative elements to your body. So chewing gum is not a good look as well. I mean, there's so many different things that we're doing and don't even realize that we're actually hurting ourselves opposed to helping ourselves. I just wanted to throw that in there, brother.
Very important. Thank you for sharing. Because I'm sure a lot of folks, the chewing gum thing is like, white people do not give us good information. In fact, they work hard to keep constructive, life-saving information from us. So, Thank you. I was reminded, reading your work and Mr. Duffy's book. There's a long-time listener, Mac Payne. He used a metaphor. I was going to go and see if I could track it down, but he used a metaphor. I was telling people, and I'm still telling listeners, sexual intercourse with white people, horrible. It's one of the worst things you can do. You put that up. Sugar consumption, number 2. Sex with white people, number 1. And he was leaving a comment, and he was saying, well, what about if you're a black person in your area where there are not that many black females? He was black male. And there are not that many black females, so all you really have to choose from is white women. And he said, taking the stance that you take, that's like if I go up to a person that's starving and doesn't have any food, they haven't had anything to eat for a week, and say, hey, put that cookie down, it's got sugar in it. You shouldn't eat that. He said, it's the same thing. And after I read this book, I was like, I would take the same stance.
Exactly.
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 Mr. Dufty, he has examples in the book where people were starving and they didn't have any food except for sugar. They ate the sugary food and they got sick. He had converse examples. There were people, they had nothing, didn't eat anything, they just had water. They survived for 9 days. They were fine, no problems, everything was good. Same
Exactly.
rules would apply. Don't eat
Yep.
the sugar, don't have sex with the white person. You would be better to do neither.
Word to the wise.
Exactly. Last thing I'll hit before I check with the callers. This was brand new. I had never heard this before, and you have a great video article on theghettotimes.com, and it's a chapter in Mr. Dufty's book, Sugar in Everything, Even Cigarettes, which total news to me. I was hoping you could touch on that. I was just going to give a quick, this is a quick quote in Sugar Blues. This is on page 194. And he's talking about how in different areas of the world, they did research studying cigarette smokers and the rate of lung cancer. And they found, looking like as the sugar quantity in the cigarettes decreases, so do the rates of lung cancer, to the point where when they looked at, this is in Russia, China, and Formosa, and other countries where cigarettes are made of air-dried tobacco, close to the kind the American Indians used before the invention of sugar, they are unable to find any correlation at all between smoking and lung cancer. And your video as well, strong evidence that would indicate that the problem with a lot of the cigarette smoking is sugar related as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I found that there's an average of 5 to 20% sugar that's added to sugar, and roughly, I think it's 20% to cigars and 40% in pipe tobacco. Now, when you're looking at pipes, you can start to smell the sweetness, so they're pretty much almost half sugar. But when I found that, and it's funny because there's this site, truth.com, that really inspired me to write this piece back in, I think I wrote this back in 2003 or 4. But yeah, this site, the truth.com, when everybody was starting to lobby against the cigarettes and putting out the information about what it causes, but I was like, okay, well, why isn't anybody talking about the real element? Because obviously if you mention sugar, then it would go beyond cigarettes. It would get into the diet, the regular food diet. But the deep thing about it is, when they are the tobacco leaves, they use sugar in the process of drying them out. And it's really deep because to find out that sugar has such a large part in the creation of lung cancer, one, makes sense when you realize that now these foundations like the what is it called, I forgot the cigarette foundation, I think it's the Lung Cancer Association or something like that. It just shows how much of a fallacy these foundations are. All they are places where people give money exponentially and they use it for whatever financial endeavors they want to do, because if you want to find a cure for something, you can surely find it. They definitely by now. I mean, you have all these foundations you give millions, billions of dollars every year to, and you still can't find a cure? Yeah, right. So when we're looking at, now all of a sudden you have these commercials where they're very graphic about what cigarettes do to you and how painful a death you'll have, but to still not talk about the sugar aspect of it still lets me know that Whitey's pretty much ready and willing and able to give up cigarettes for now, because that's not a large moneymaker for them. The largest moneymaker for them is sugar itself, probably candy, probably soda, which is something when you're looking at, and really if you want to know what the most important elements food-wise is important to white folks, just look at the stocks. I mean, when you're looking at companies like Pepsi and Coca-Cola and what they're trading for, and you see the different mechanisms that are being used to infiltrate them into different countries, professional sporting leagues, NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball, soccer, you get all these endorsements coming into China, Japan, India, obviously Africa. You start to see where they're putting their money at. So I could see how they're willing to give up on cigarettes because that's probably one of the most blatant and quickest ways that you can see an effect of, a bad effect health-wise. But, it's still nevertheless something that we should become aware of and start, again, doing our own research and not accepting what they tell us is what's good and what's bad for us. Because to find out that sugar is the unknown factor, killer factor in cigarettes, and to not be mentioned is seriously profound. It's seriously profound. This lets me know that they're covering something up that's probably much larger than we even think.
Context of white supremacy. Our guest again, M'bwebe Ishangi, and his website, theghettotimes.com. And you mentioned John Robbins. That, folks, if you want to do some more research on nutrition and foods, I know one of his books, Die for New America. A lot of information in it. And this is a white guy, as you touched on. His family, founders of Baskin Robbins, I believe he had, $1 million inheritance from all of this, and he walked away from it. And he talked about how he saw that sugar stuff and dairy. He was saying sugar and the milk that goes in that ice cream just tore his family's health up. They were suffering from diabetes, and they were eating the family business. They were eating ice cream every day, and they got rich, but they paid a price with their health. And this is a white person, suspected racist, keep that in mind, but just to see a white person who's saying, I've seen the effects of this stuff is bad, even though we made a lot of money from this. I mean, it's killing our family. And he wrote Die for New America. You can get the book, check it out. Young Chad, he said he had questions. Young Chad, your line should be open if you have a question for Mr. Ishangi.
Yes, can you hear me, Mr. Ishangi?
Yes, sir. Bless. What's going on, brother?
I actually have a couple of questions I want to start off with. It's too bad that I actually shop at Whole Foods every week because now I'm scared to eat the food. So you're saying that the U.S. government is with Whole Foods and are in the bed together, is that correct?
Well, definitely that. But if you look at just the products itself, you're going to see a USDA label. When you see the USDA logo on there, that's just letting you know that there is a merge, and that label has been in effect for at least over 5 years, I would say. So it's not just to single out Whole Foods, but anywhere you go, any organic sector, if you see that logo on a product, then that's telling you right there.
Okay. And also, what foods am I supposed to? You said string beans, spinach, and get off the candy, correct?
I would say the best thing you could do if you were trying to revamp your diet is, number one, get off of processed foods. Number one.
Okay.
Learn
McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's.
Also, yeah, that's fast food, but also processed foods, being ready-made foods, TV dinners, microwavable foods. Shouldn't even use a microwave anyway, because that's radioactive. Frozen foods, canned goods. I wouldn't, but I would say in regards to if there was a disaster, I have to say this: if there was a disaster, it's good to have food that has shelf life, and you eat them if you need it to survive. But if you're in a condition where everything is okay, then definitely implement more green leafy vegetables. I'm talking kale, I'm talking lettuce, spinach, anything in the green lettuce family. The darker the green, the better, the higher melanin, the higher vitamin intake. We're talking about fruits, colorful fruits. We're talking about melons, we're talking about grapes. We're talking about nuts. Almonds have the most, it has 100 different kinds of calcium in it. Raw almonds, not salted or roasted. If you eat anything that's salted or roasted, it means it was is basically been the rawest elements have been taken out or burned out of it. Oatmeal, basically, get back to if you have any elders in your family, ask them what did they make when they were younger, and how did they make it? Things that were made from scratch, opposed to something that's ready-made and you just pop it in the oven. because when you're talking about processed foods, they put a lot of unhealthy things in there to sustain the quote-unquote substance so that when you eat it, it isn't spoiled. So they put a lot of salt and even sugar just to maintain when you eat it, say, for instance, a year or 6 months from now. So, those kind of foods you really shouldn't eat. In addition to that, with diet, not just in eating, but also to have bowel movement, you should really get, high fiber diets, making sure that you're moving your bowels. You're basically taking a crap, to be direct and blunt, once or twice a day. If you're going every 2 or 3 days, that's not a good thing. You need to up your intake in liquids, primarily in water. You could drink herbal teas. What else?
Herbal teas, okay.
Yeah, herbal teas are good. Peppermint, but not no Lipton tea. That's that crap. And also, it's importantly vital. If you're having problem moving your bowels, you need to become physically more active. So if you're running around, sweating, this is going to basically cause your body to move around, makes your body use more energy, which will, in your body, that's the thing about the thing about our body is that it is a machine. It's a machine, and unfortunately we don't come with a blueprint to understand how it works in its entirety, but it will react if you use it. As they say, there's a saying that a body that is not used, stays not you. I can't even say it right, but if you use your body, if you put your body in motion, it stays. A body at rest stays at rest. A body in motion stays in motion. So if you're using your body, you're moving around, you're getting the blood circulating, you're keeping the heart gushing the blood to the rest around of your body, it's also going to push out those impurities and those toxins that you breathe in. I would also say that if you live in a city, it is best to take at least 1,000 milligram of vitamin C per day, because the vitamin C burns the impurities that you inhale, from car traffic, city pollution. So get into vitamins is best, if possible, to take them liquid, opposed to capsules, especially gel capsules, because gel capsules is made out of sugar. So there's so many different things, that you need to look into. But if you have any questions or any ideas, or I can definitely share with you what I know, and also direct you to people that have given me this information. Again, I also recite Layla Africa is one of the most profound cats out that can give you a good diet plan.
All right.
But for the most part, yeah, get rid of the processed foods, man, and start cooking.
And
start cooking from scratch.
Okay, start cooking. And the last question I wanted to ask is, what's your book called, and what's the website again?
Okay, my first book is called Analytical Cogitations, and
you know what? I can't. I was going to ask you to spell that, but so maybe I can ask somebody to type it to me.
Oh, you can email me. You can email me me at info at the Ghetto Times. That's DAGHETTOTY as in yes, M as in Mark.
GhettoTimes.com.
Correct.
Okay.
And that's the website as well. TYMZ, not TIMES, but TYMZ. And I can send you the link to the book. And there's another book I have coming out called The Unknown Known. That'll be out in the spring of next year. That's a pure metaphysical book.
I think maybe you can connect to my Facebook or something if you want to.
For sure.
That information. So.
Definitely.
All right.
So yeah, brother, like I said, just keep doing what you can, man. If there's anything that I can do to help you, just feel free to hit me up.
Always good to hear from young Chad. Thank you for calling in, sir. Let's see. Justice, did you have a question?
Oh, no. I was just going to say, well, no. I was just going to say, because they were talking about cooking, I was just going to say that I really, really like cooking. And I try to cook healthy foods.
Very good. Very good.
I'll give out the address, and then Justice, if you have some more questions, feel free. But I'll give out the number really quick. If you want to dial in to get a question, you got to be quick. Number 760-569-7676, and the code is 564943 pound. Number again, 760-569-7676, and the code is 564943 pound. Justice, if you had some questions, feel free.
Okay, let me see. Okay, my next question is, I know that cheese is pretty popular in this area of the world, and a lot of people eat it by itself and or on other food. I have heard that mozzarella cheese is very low in fat, but it is, well, I think it's still fattening for your body. I was just curious, why do you think the people in charge, racist man, racist woman, encourage us to eat cheese?
That's
and cheese is in everything.
Yeah.
Well, not in everything, but in a lot of foods.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, again, I'd have to attribute the people at the IFF that we don't even know if we're eating cheese. We don't even know if we're eating meat these days. I mean, you just don't know. But when you become a slave to your taste buds, you'll eat anything as long you don't know what you're eating, and you really won't care. That's the thing, is that even Elijah Muhammad said there's a difference between living to eat and eating to live. And we pretty much live to eat opposed to eating to live. So we don't understand the food human relationship. So we eat out of habit opposed to, okay, it's time to replenish my body so that I can get maximum production. We don't fathom eating food so that we can have a higher performance from ourselves. We eat food because I feel like a snack. It tastes good, or it's something that I want to try, and everybody else is trying it, so let me try it. Or I have a coupon for it. We eat mainly because society has taught us that food is about entertainment and enjoyment, escape. You can imagine how infatuated white people are with chocolate, and they eat chocolate because they want to fantasize, and it's become an aphrodisiac. So with cheese, I've found a lot of vegetarians that still eat cheese, which again, you can't really be a vegetarian if you're eating food that comes from an animal. So if you're saying you don't eat animals, that means you don't eat what comes from them as well. So, I would say that it's not just that they're pushing cheese, but they're pushing animal products on people. And because it even took me a minute. When I first gave up meat, I was still eating eggs and I was still eating cheese, and I didn't understand. I didn't put the two together, but once I did, I realized, hey, chickens lay eggs, and or hens lay eggs, and so if I'm eating chicken, or if I'm eating, if I don't eat chicken, I shouldn't be eating eggs. If I don't eat anything from the cow, then I shouldn't be drinking its milk, or I shouldn't be, eating butter or cheese. So these are the things that, again, we're more slaves to our taste buds and not really caring about what we put in our mouths. And it really starts from when we were used. It goes to what our parents fed us. It goes to what they put in our mouths, and we tasted it, and it tasted great, so we just always felt, well, if it tastes good, it got to be good. But that isn't always the case. As you always heard, everything that tastes good isn't good for you. So, that's what I would say in regards to the cheese thing and anything else that's in that subject, is that, it's one thing for something to taste real good, but the next question should be, is it good? Is it doing my body any good? Is it really helping me maintain or even make my body in my relationship to my ancestors? And that's the thing too about having a body is when you die, or when you transform rather, your body becomes one with the earth again. So the question is, for me, the challenge is for me to have my physical return to the earth in its best possible. To me, this is alone. This body is alone. This is not mine to keep. My spirit is a different thing, but this physical body is a part of this earth. So I would prefer to give my body back in the best shape that I can possible, opposed to being full of dis-ease. But again, that's just a conversation that we don't have enough. And I think once we start doing that, then maybe we can start understanding and being more responsible of what we put between our teeth, what we put in our mouth.
Okay. Gus, do you have a question or?
We have a caller. Person who dialed in 1760. Did you have a question for Mr. Ishangi?
Greetings, Gus and Justice. Can I be heard?
Yes, ma'am.
Greetings.
Hello, Justice. Mr. Ishangi, how are you?
Greetings. How are you?
I am being victimized, to be exact.
Are we all?
Sorry to hear that.
I know your page. It froze up my computer. I had to boot it down.
I hate TalkShoe too. Worst online radio station ever. I hate it too.
It froze up everything. My calls.
Same here.
And I couldn't even get in. I had to hang up the phone, reboot my computer, call back in again, and get back in line. So I'm so glad that you hadn't left. But you were speaking of going natural. I don't know if you read, there was an article Dr. Oz did because I caught the show maybe about half an hour or so ago. I don't know if you read the study where Dr. Oz, where they took some samples of apple juice and they found levels of arsenic in it. If you Google it, you can pull up the article. It was done recently within the past couple of days. And it is the top name brands like Mott's, Apple and Eve, and Gerber that a lot of people give to their children to feed them the Gerber juices. So that is something that you might want to look at, because it said a lot of the apples, it's processed from China. Of course, China name is coming up again, as well as from parts of Latin and South America, and they're claiming that there are traces of arsenic. So he has a list of them up there. So I know, Justice, if you buy that and if you use that you might want to check in your closet and see what else is in there. But they have about 5 well-known brands that was tested, and they were found traces of arsenic in them. So that is something to keep in mind. Also, you were speaking on sugar. I got off of the sugar a long time ago. Anything white. I even buy eggs. Even if I have to buy eggs, I get brown eggs. And I don't buy anything with white on it. And I use the brown sugar, the natural sugar, brown. And also there's a new product out. It's called Agave. I don't know if you ever heard of it, Mr. Ishangi.
Yes.
If you have to use a sweetening product, it's an organic product, and it's a natural root, and it's a sweetener that you can use in order to if you have that taste for sugar, and it's not as bad as the regular sugar. And you were speaking on the toothpastes and getting off of the fluoride. I use the product that I found. It's called by Tom's. I don't know if you ever heard of them.
Yes.
They have toothpaste as well as they have deodorant that you can use, because to get rid of that silica, that silica or whatever you find in the regular store brand. So people who are still want to go natural, just go buy the Tom's product. It comes in many different flavors, and it also comes in deodorant, toothpaste and deodorant. It does not have the fluoride in it. It's strictly organic, or just use plain baking soda.
Right, exactly. That's what I was going to say.
You can brush your teeth with that instead of using any of the other over-the-store brand product. But that was just my contribution. I just had to let you know I was victimized on this show page.
But thank you for the information, and I'd like to also add with that you mentioned you mentioned the arsenic. I'm looking that up right now, and in the apple juice. And also you mentioned about the toothpaste. Yeah, what I was going to say that, it's best to, if you want to get practical You could, because even there's Tom's of Maine's, as you mentioned, and there's also Nature's Gate is another product that puts out deodorants and other, toothpastes and mouthwashes and things of that nature that you can get in organic stores or online. You can buy them as well. But I would say, too, is that just monitor those things, too, because I found that there are other organic. Let me give you an example. I did a piece on my site called canola oil, dealing with canola oil, and I found that roughly 3 or 4 years ago, the organic market, again being in cahoots with the FDA, started putting canola oil in all of its, using that as its oil substance, opposed to using coconut oil or using, which is one of the best oils, and also or using vegetable oil. So I'm saying this to say that today there's certain products that may be good, but you need to monitor the ingredients because they may change overnight, and you'll find a certain, one day they have this element, and the next day they'll start inserting something else. And I say that to say I found a resurgence or a sudden explosion of canola oil being in a lot of vegetarian-based foods and also products. So, that's something that we should just, be mindful of, is to not be totally dependent on man-made products, that there's some things that we can just use for, on our own, like you mentioned, baking soda. So, just not to get caught up on, because this thing about the arsenic in the apple juice is throwing me off, because if it was to drink any juice, I would drink it from Apple and Eve. But now I got to look into this because, and that's the thing about sugar. We didn't talk about the juice thing is, you find juices that say 100% natural or made with natural juices. That doesn't mean there's no sugar in it.
You got to read the back of the label.
Unless it said no sugar added, it does have sugar in it. And even with those nowadays, as I mentioned, things are changing. The FDA laws are changing. They're starting to put more stuff in it. Why? Because people are becoming more aware. And the more people that become aware, the more money they tend to lose. So they have to make sure they keep us intertwined in this matrix of getting sick. So that's just to let you know, we should be aware of the things that they're doing and just, keep monitoring what you see. And I would also even say that when you go to the store, if you see something that's absurd in the ingredients, spread the word. Put it on the internet, email me. I'll put it out, let people know, be on the lookout for this product because these things that are in it aren't necessarily good for us.
I agree. I'm sorry. Yes, I didn't mean to interrupt you because I had the page up, and that's when my computer crashed because I was definitely going to give you all the site to go, and it froze everything up. And when I shut it down, I can't even find the page to bring it back up. But if you're still on the call, go ahead, Justice, and I'll see if I can locate it and give you the link where you can pull it up.
Okay. I'm just okay. I am pretty familiar with the Tom's Children's toothpaste, and you were saying that you brush with the Tom's toothpaste, the collar.
Yes, I did. Yes, that and
okay.
I use deodorant as well.
Okay. I just wanted to say that Tom's, I believe, has carrageenan in it. The strawberry Tom's toothpaste, the children's kind, it has carrageenan in it. I would recommend to check if it does have carrageenan in it.
Okay, I would have to take a look because I normally don't do things with flavors.
Yeah, that's the thing. Go ahead. Yeah, the things about the flavors, be careful because they'll put some flavoring in there that's not necessarily good for you.
Okay.
Agreed. And or like if it says like Chondrus crispus, which that is the same thing as
on here because I'm looking at it right now and it's saying zinc citrate and the Chondrus crispus with the carrageenan and the sodium bicarbonate.
Mhm.
Yeah. I don't think that carrageenan it's helpful.
Okay, I'm gonna have to pull a research and see what's going on with that.
Well, a good alternative is to just buy a juicer, get some apples, get some water, and juice them yourself. That's
like for
something that
toothpaste?
Huh? No, it's
like for toothpaste?
No, I'm sorry. I was thinking about apple juice.
Oh.
No, but with the apple, with the toothpaste, as she mentioned, I guess that could be one of the very few white things you could take is the baking soda. But I would, say basically what I'm trying to basically say is that we need to start looking at how can I make some of these things myself out of the natural natural elements. So, for instance, the apple juice, if it's supposed to be just apples and water, then, just do it yourself, opposed to buying something, as she was mentioning about Dr. Oz and the arsenic thing.
Okay, yeah, I found it now. If you go to the Dr. Oz homepage, show page, DrOz.com, and you can pull it up from there because he has the research information that he did, and he had the responses from the juice companies that you send it out to, because he has it up here. It's Minute Maid, Apple and Eve, Mott's, Juicy Juice, and Gerber.
Wow. That's interesting. Okay. Yeah, I see it.
Oh, you pulled it up?
Yeah, I see it.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you think of veggie caps? Because that's what I normally use. I don't use because the other one, the glycerin caps or whatever, because it normally has like a pork product, and I stay away from anything that has to do with pork. So I more use like a veggie cap.
That's what like a vitamin?
Yeah, for vitamins or anything that I have to use. It comes in a pill form. I'll make sure that it comes in a veggie cap.
Yeah, I would say, well, number one, if you're gonna do vitamins, then yes, definitely that. But I would also say that the best way to get vitamins is to get it from the actual food itself, because even in vitamins, they're purified, they're extracted from a plant, and anything that's pulled out of its natural element loses its potency. And also because vitamins are grounded into dust or like that sandy, what it's made out of, it loses a lot of potency. Multivitamins, I would say, is something that we should not take. And the reason why I say that we shouldn't take multivitamins is because your body at different times has different ratios. So say your body has a certain level of vitamin B, 70%, and then next week it could be 65, and the following week it could be 85. Well, if your body goes over 100% of a certain intake of an element, then it could become toxic over a long period of time. When you're looking at multivitamins, they're at a set value. So you're looking at a multivitamin that may have 35% this, 25% that. Well, what if you're already near your cap and you keep taking this multivitamin where your body is going to be in excess of this element, this vitamin, which could become toxic? So it's best to get the vitamins that you need out of the food. If you get your green leafy vegetables, you're going to get your calcium, you're going to get your vitamins B and A and C and D, and so on and so forth. So it's really about us becoming more in tune about what elements, what vitamins are found in what foods. And even when you're eating your vitamin or eating your greens, for example, you shouldn't be boiling your greens. You should be, at the very least, steam them till they're a little bit crisp. But if you boil them or steam them to the point where they're lifeless, well, guess what? You just steamed out all the elements. So there's things about cooking that we need to understand about when you want to get, because the purpose of eating is not just to have a fat belly. The purpose of eating is to replenish your body of what it needs to be able to sustain. And if you approach it from that perspective, you'll become educated on what you need to do and how you can get certain foods in its highest potency. So vitamins, if you need to, yes, but the best way is to get it from the food itself.
We are at the 2-hour mark. I wanted to see if Justice, if you had a final question for Mr. Ishangi before he departs. I know it's a little later for him on the East Coast. Justice, if you had a final question you want to get in before Mr. Ishangi leaves us?
Can I be heard? Hello? Because I think I pressed my... Okay.
We can hear you.
Let me think. Trying to think of some questions. Do you know any, do you know any, some of the materials that are in flu shots?
Oh, man. Oh, man. Brother, do we have time for that? That's a whole nother can of worms right there. Wow.
If you don't mind, I can...
I have the information. I have the information. I can send it to you. I'm just saying because I know that you're pressed for time, brother. That's a whole. I did a piece on fluoride vaccinations and what's in it, and it's really, really deep about the whole vaccination issue because that right there is something that they're really able to kill off a lot, if not kill off, then pretty much injure a lot of our youth. Because when they're babies, when they rush you to get these shots, and they're too young to even tell you that they're having a problem resulting from shots. But I can send you the information. But that right there is that's a Pandora box right there.
Okay. Okay, I'll save that question for you said that you can send me the information?
Yes, and I would love to come on again and talk about that as well.
Okay. My email, if you want to send me it, my email address is justice.asap@yahoo.com. Again, that is justice.asap@yahoo.com. Let's see. I have been seeing signs saying, get your flu shots today, flu shots make you live longer, and many more signs about that. Have you seen any signs like that, and what do you think about those signs?
It is all a part of global white supremacy trying to fulfill the projection of the Global 2000 project, killing, 2 billion people by a certain period of time. And the vaccinations, first of all, I have families that I've talked to that have kids that have had their kids vaccinated, as well as families that have not had their kids vaccinated. And the thing that puzzles me most is when you don't vaccinate your child, the people that the backlash should get are from parents and doctors who are advocates of the shot. So here's the question. If I am a parent and I have my child vaccinated, then I shouldn't have a worry about a child who isn't vaccinated because I'm allegedly protected. But why is it that most backlash that you get that a parent will receive from a child, from them not having a child vaccinated, are getting the backlash from parents who got their children vaccinated? Why is it that parents or people that get vaccinated still end up getting these colds and flus and the very same vaccination that they went in for, they end up getting it? Why? Because they put it in your body. So the whole vaccination thing, it's a ploy. It's something that is used to attack your immune system. Again, acquired immune deficiency syndrome isn't just a sexually transmitted disease. It is when your body's immune deficiency, your body's immune system becomes deficient, meaning your body can't protect itself anymore. And when you get vaccinations, it taxes the ability of your body to take care of itself. So, you know, if you have a raw diet or if you have a vegetarian or vegan diet and you're eating the right foods in the vegan diet, you're eating green leafy vegetables, you're putting in the nutrients that your body needs. Now, imagine now, human beings have been here much longer than the 100-year-old hospital administration, and with all these vaccinations, we've been here much longer than that, and we weren't getting these diseases. So, you know, we need to understand that this is all about trying to physically enslave us so that we basically are unable to be the greatest persons that we can ever be. You know, because you'll be physically disabled, spiritually destitute, you know, and mentally literally challenged. But, you know, I could send you information on that as well.
Okay. Thank you very much. I do not have any more questions for you. And do you think you can come back on the program to talk more about, you know, flu shots and, you know, sugar?
I would love to, and I don't want it to be another year to go by to do it.
Great. Excellent. Yeah, so thank you for coming on. Thank you for coming back on the program to talk about sugar and other foods, and yeah, I really appreciate the information.
Well, the pleasure's been all mine, and likewise, I learned some things as well. So thank you.
Context of white supremacy. I'll give out the address again. Excellent information. He has not just one, two videos on the crack cocaine, sugar, white sugar. Got to keep those words together. White sugar. Excellent video articles on white sugar. As well, he has a great video article on sugar being in cigarettes. You can check all that information out. The address again, theghettotimes.com. It's DAGETTYMZ.com, theghettotimes.com. We definitely will make sure it is not a year before you are back on the program. As I said, one of my favorite guests, Mr. Ishangi. Thank you so much for sharing some of your Thursday evening with us.
Lafia, appreciate it, brother.
Bye.
Blessing.
We'll speak with you soon, sir. Thank you again.
All right, bless.
Have a great evening. Context of white supremacy. We'll take a quick commercial break. Hope people got constructive information, and we'll be right back. Hopefully we'll have a news report and see if anyone has any comments they want to share before we wrap up the program. Context of white supremacy.
RacismDaily.com, your number one source for global news reports on race, racism, and overt actions of white supremacy. From Asia to the Americas to Europe to Australia to Africa, racism is not a thing of the past, it is our current reality. Be informed, be globally informed. You should be the first to know. RacismDaily.com, RacismDaily.com, RacismDaily.com.
Is racism hurting you? On issues of race, are you unable to speak, think, and act with clarity and confidence? Are you tired of laughing when nothing is funny, smiling when you are not happy, agreeing when you really disagree? At counterracism.com, you can learn specific strategies and techniques to counter the behaviors of the people who practice racism in all areas of activity, using words correctly, following counter-racist logic, even counter-racist science projects designed to reveal what racism is, how it works, and how to counter it. The open-source code writing format allows you to pick and choose from a variety of counter-racist suggestions so you can produce the code that works for you. Stop by counterracism.com today and help replace racism with justice.
That's counter-racism.com.
Do you need a one-stop shop for all of your multimedia needs? Triumphant Multimedia is a skilled team of professionals with a passion for great marketing and chic design. Our specialties include consulting, brand development, copywriting, and creative graphic design that's second to none. We also offer photography, photo retouching, videography, and video editing. At Triumphant Multimedia, our goal is to provide highly effective creative solutions built to suit any individual need or budget. Give us a call at 678-732-8067 or check us out online at trimultimedia.com.
Hi everybody, welcome. This is Justice with the C.O.W.S radio program. If you want to learn about, understand, and counter racism, white supremacy, be sure not to miss a C.O.W.S episode. We keep them jam-packed with constructive information to sharpen your use of words to help eliminate the system of racism, white supremacy, ASAP. Also, for more information on racism, white supremacy, and to invest in my counter-racist efforts, please visit my blog, justdojustice.blogspot.com.
You're just saying just buckets and buckets of words.
Yo, this is Wade, one half of the Black Twins, and I want y'all to check something out. Our latest project, Double Consciousness, the Mixed Message. This will be dropping October 2nd, 2011, featuring various audio from Umar Abdullah Johnson and Dr. Kembaum, just to name a few. You can download this at www.gagmusicroom.bandcamp.com and at stlouismixtapes.com. That's STLmixtapes.com. Replace white supremacy with justice now.
This mixtape is only for victims of racism and white supremacy.
Context of white supremacy. I want to make sure I get in ebonynewschannel.blogspot.com. ebonynewschannel.blogspot.com. 818, she informed me about Mr. Ishangi in the first place. Contributions to the program. Definitely want to recognize her recommendation. Very constructive guest, and look forward to having him back on the program as soon as possible. Invest if you think the program is constructive. Links should be in the description. You can invest financially, and you can invest by sharing links. Very helpful. As you heard from our caller 404, we are always under attack. We are on the worst possible internet radio broadcast site at TalkShoe. In addition to all the racist commentary on the page, I think tons of people, I have lost count of how many folks have said they have encountered extraordinary difficulty in just attempting to access the page. And you can put me in that group as well. Every day I have difficulties accessing the page. It is ridiculous. And I suspect exactly what racist white supremacists intend. So share the links, and also keep in mind we generally are also broadcast simultaneously on the Black Talk Radio Network. So you can check out that site. And listen, I'll put a link up on my Facebook page. You can listen there as well if you're having difficulties. So you have multiple ways of tuning in. If you want to listen online, streaming, or if you want to dial in, multiple ways to access the cows. Thank you all for your patience, and hopefully we will be able to move off this site as soon as possible. But yeah, definitely share the links, Facebook, Twitter, other sites that you think would be constructive. Justice, if you have a news report you would like to share, feel free.
I do not have a news report, but I do have thoughts on the program. I just wanted to say, white people, he was talking about like white people would drop candy, sugar, and Coca-Cola in China. I think that, not like drop candy, but I think give it out. And he said that that would kill the people in China faster than bombs. I thought that was very interesting. He said that a lot of African women, black women, are obese once you're out of high school, you just want to eat what you can and what you can afford, such as McDonald's, Burger King, and many more restaurants. Or I should say fast food, fast food restaurants. We would not need any hospitals if not enough people would be eating healthy. Well, I didn't say we wouldn't need hospitals, but like, not a lot of people wouldn't be going to hospitals if we would be eating a lot more healthier. That's about it.
I completely agree. Totally agree. We would just have so many fewer problems if it wasn't for white people and their white sugar and all of their unhealthful life habits that we have. Really, death habits. That's what they should be called. They're unhealthful death habits that we have picked up from them. Sugar, really try as much as you can. That can be your counter-racist effort. If you don't want to, write a book or do a radio program, or, you can't think of something else to do, at least say, well, I'm at least going to say I'm going to be as healthful as I can. I'm not going to do sugar and all that stuff. That right there would work against racism, white supremacy. Just saying I'm going to, at least my family, they won't talk about racism. I'm at least going to see if I can get them off sugar. Like, I think most people, they would be okay talking about food. I say that gingerly, but might be able to at least do that. I'm going to at least see if I can get my family to be a little bit healthier and get away from high fructose corn syrup. That right there would work against the plans of racist woman, racist man.
And I also want to say that that I would recommend to help yourself before you do anything else. Help yourself before you do anything else, because you want to focus on what you need for yourself, on what you need for your body, and
I think Justice and I would both co-sign on this one in terms of black people not drinking sodas. White people, I think, would be very upset if black people in mass started just saying, you know what, we're not doing sodas anymore. We're just going to drink water.
Alcohol.
I'm sorry. We're just going to drink water, no alcohol, no rum, no big black dicks rum, none of that stuff. We're just going to drink water and fruit juices that have a low sugar concentration, none of that added sugar, no high fructose corn syrup juices, just healthful 100% juice, organic if you can get it, no chemicals.
Make your own juices.
What Mr. Ishangi said, get your own apples, some water, do it yourself. But definitely no 2011, we're just not doing sodas. No more of that diabetes stuff for us. And if you need a little push, I'll share. This is a paragraph. I would really encourage folks to read this book, Sugar Blues by William Duffy. You will learn a lot about how awful sugar is and why it should be classified. It's a poison. You'll learn a lot about sugar as a poison. But this is on page 143. He writes, he's talking about Coca-Cola. A product like Coca-Cola, which contains known poisons and destroys teeth and stomach, has one of the most stunning ad campaigns in the history of the white world. It is really fantastic, this unreal amount of money creating an illusion, the illusion that Coke is the real thing, in quotes, because that used to be their advertising campaign. Coke is the real thing. Now, Coke executives have learned from extensive research that young America is searching for what is real, meaningful in this plastic world, and one bright ad executive comes up with the idea that it is Coke. Yep, Coke is the real thing, And this is drilled into the minds of 97% of all young people between the age of 6 and 19 until their teeth are rotting just like their parents did. There is nothing truthful about advertising. Imagine a young, pimply-faced kid in front of a camera telling folks how clear his complexion was before he started drinking Coke. And even though he knows it's bumming his social life, he just can't seem to get off the stuff. That would be truth in advertising. Or how about a young girl holding up a can of orange drink made in New Jersey, saying the reason it's orange is because of the food coloring. The reason it is bad is because we use coal tar artificial flavors, and the reason we would like you to try it is because we want to make money. Truth in advertising would be the end of 3 major networks, 500 magazines, several thousand newspapers, and tens of thousands of businesses. So there will never be truth in advertising. William Duffy, Sugar Blues. I think he says repeatedly in his book, anything that you see heavily advertised, you know they are lying about this product. They've got to spend all this money and time talking about it and trying to encourage you to consume it. Whatever it is, probably something wrong with it. And I see Coke, all their sugary stuff advertised just ad nauseum. So that would be my recommendation. I will double check any of the folks that, I see hands. Person who called in from Florida, who had a hand up. Did you have a comment, sir, or ma'am?
Yeah, thank you. I would like to add this. When my unit went to, when we went to Iraq, one of the things that I was combat arms infantry, 11 Charlie Mortarman from Fort Hood, Texas. One of the things that we would do is when they'll go in the villages, they'll throw like candies and stuff, and that was like a strategic way to do like reconnaissance and find out like different areas and stuff. So I just like to add that, with the sugar thing.
This was like a planned strategy to distribute candy when you all were going into areas for combat?
No, sugar was like, it's like, during that time of like 2003, during that whole Iraqi freedom war, stuff like that, is used as a tactic to infiltrate certain areas, because you gotta understand, like sugar, kids like sugar, the villagers, they don't like it, they've never seen it, and plus like we be having like Oreos and different candies that they're not exposed to because they're poor. You know what I mean? And so when we be on the APC or like the Abrams tanks or the Humvees, you throw them out, and the kids will come and whatnot, and then it's sort of like a strategy, like a tactic to go to certain areas in the different villages to find out who's so-called bad people or what stuff they have, set up strategic points. So, because remember the brother was saying that how they go to China and they give, McDonald's and stuff like that. And I was just thinking, like, when I was in, why they have, why the sergeant, the platoon sergeant telling us, to be friendly and give out candy and whatnot, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, but now when I think about it, I'm like, that's part of like the global white supremacy. They go out and give sugar, candy, to get you all, like non-productive or like, tired or, because the sugar, it brings you up and it brings you down. The candy brings you up and bring you down. Then you're not focused. Then you can go in and, do whatever you want to do.
I see. That's That's the same MO the molesters use. How they get the children in. Like, I got some candy for you. That man, I'm not surprised. I'm very appreciative for you sharing, but I am not surprised at that at all. Come in, white people, even when they look like they have gifts, man, be extraordinarily suspicious, man.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, like I'm I was infantry, and my whole mindset is at that time was be hardcore and fight, and because they train you a certain way. And then all of a sudden, they say giving out candy. Like, what this has to do with anything? We got to watch out for IEDs because they blew off a tank. And we got to make sure that we know the grids because they shoot mortars behind other buildings and stuff like that. I'm like, why candy? I understand why it's candy because the people will be friendly. They'll tell you where the other bad people are. They'll tell you where the weapons cache and stuff like that. And then it mess up their because they're not used to the westernized diet, so they become tired, and also so it's something to really look in when they distribute sugar and stuff, like especially in the black community. Like everybody likes sugar and diabetes. That way we don't have no fighting spirit. We don't tired. We're like, okay, whatever.
Totally agree. The 404, your line is still open. I just wanted to there was somebody else who called in with a hand up. Caller in Florida, your line is still open as well. The person who called in from Texas, did you have a question or comment? I'm hearing a lot of background noise. Person in Texas, I'm hearing a lot of background noise. If you can quiet that down, because it's hurting my ears a little bit. I'll try your line again. Let's see. Okay, your line should be open, Texas.
Hello?
Yes, sir. We can hear you.
Yeah. All right. I just like to say he was talking about an agency that can take any liquid and flavor it any way. And not too long ago, maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, a white coworker of mine brought in this Doritos product. It was called like All Nighter or something. Well, the chips tasted like tacos or cheeseburgers. So Doritos has that product out there.
That is crazy. I think I've seen those. I don't normally eat Doritos, but I think I've seen those. The Doritos that taste like they're supposed to taste like tacos. That's what you said, right?
You could taste the lettuce. You could taste the tomato. You could taste. I mean, it tastes like a taco with the texture of a Dorito. It's insane.
Wow.
And the cheeseburger flavor is the same way. You can taste the lettuce. You can taste the meat, the cheese, the tomato sauce, and they normally sell them at gas stations. They call them the all-nighter.
That is crazy. That's like when I think of all-nighter, I think of like binge drinking. Wow. That's total drug. I'm sorry. Can you say that one more time? Was Texas? Are you still there, sir?
Oh yes.
Okay. I just didn't hear the last comment.
That's what I just wanted to add that. I'll hang up the list.
Oh, okay.
Well,
wow, thank you.
When I hang up, I'll just leave my line.
Oh, okay. Right on. Yeah, that total drug. If the other folks have anything they would like to share, that's what I have in mind with those sort of products. Total drug. That is not food. Mr. Ishangi, he talks about that. The Food and Drug Administration, just the title of that organization lets you know that they are drugging the foods. Products like that, I think of drug. And other far from helpful, other snack items, I notice in myself and other people, like Lay's, they brag about saying, you bet you can't just eat one. You got to have a bunch of them. I suspect it's because they've got a lot of chemicals in there that are addictive, and you can't just eat one. You got to eat the whole bag because they put drugs in it to make it addictive. Sugar is one that is addictive, where it's not just that you're hungry. It might not even be that you like it that much. It's just that there are chemicals in those foods that really take over your motivation to want to eat that product. So that's what I think of when I hear something like that. Not food, but drug. I'll mute my line if anyone has anything they want to share.
It's not only that. They have things that they put in the food that awakens your taste bud, as Mr. Ishangi says, and it makes you have this craving for things that you normally would not eat. And that's what they do in the snack food industry. As I said, they have all of these labs that they have these different chemicals that they try on the food. And I had a friend of mine that they used to get paid to go out and just do test products. Because they pay pretty good money, you just go ahead and just put yourself on the list, and whenever they have something new coming out and they want test subjects to come out and test it, you just go in there and then they test it on you. So who knows, you could be a walking bag of germs with all of these things that you subject yourselves to. But what he was stating with the candy and with the sugar, that is something that the military has always done. Because if you look at the history of all the world wars that they have fought, one of the things that they always do when they come in is they always have the candy and the gum that they would give to the children and to the women, because I found it when I was in the military in Korea. It was the same way too with the GIs. Because sugar gives you this rush, it gives you this burst of energy, and then after a while it just brings you down. You go up and then you just get this crash. So they've always used it. It's a means that they've used in the military.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, like, I'm just, it's funny. I mean, like, you're supposed to go, like, it's just how the sergeant and the platoon was saying, do this and do that. I'm like, they tell you, in the in the military, they say, shoot first and ask questions later. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, now when I look back at it now, I'm like, it's part of at that time, I was not aware of the whole global white supremacy. You know what I'm saying? So it's when you look at it, you do research, like, oh, I see what they're doing. Oh, I can understand. It's part of to go in some people's country, give them poison, get them all crazy, and they still continue to do. It's just crazy.
Yep, that's it. It's part of their mind control, just to make you an addict. We all know with the tobacco industry, which is one of the reasons why most black people that smoke cigarettes, they always smoke the menthol, because they're marketed for black people. We buy all of the menthol cigarettes, no matter what kind they are. You find them in the black neighborhood, and they put it in there to keep you addicted. You're thinking that, oh, this is something nice, and my breath is not going to stink as bad if I use it with the menthol. And most blacks who smoke, that's what they smoke, the menthols.
Right. And you know one thing too. Have you ever seen those videos, right, where they put those Mentos little balls in one of those bottles of Coke, and then they throw it and it bursts like rockets?
Is it a commercial?
Yeah, that goes to make me think. When you drink the Coke and you eat it behind some other food, maybe it compresses and actually you have like mini explosions in your stomach. I'm just throwing that out there.
Well, I just know from using it to clean off the cables on my battery cables in my car, and I know if it could do that, it foams up and it eats all of that stuff off of it. I just know what it could do to soft tissue. So I have weaned myself off of any kind of soft drinks, beverages, whatever it is. I don't do carbonated beverages.
Oh, one thing, too, I forgot to add. I'm just not remember it. Like, whenever whenever like we come out from the field, right, from training, you know, the flak jacket and the uniforms, the BDUs will get like stained, right? In order for us to clean it real good, we will you know, throw in the detergent, and then we would throw in like a can of Pepsi. If you will not throw a can of Pepsi or Coke, you won't be getting all that hard stain from your flak jacket or from your BDU. I just now remember that.
That's true, because 7-Up and a lot of those things that have that effervescent, it's good for removing like hard stains, such like blood and that red clay and certain things. You pour it on your clothes and it would just start eating up those things in it and just make it comes out in the wash.
Right.
So, yes, it could do that to a material, then you know what it can do to you. Because I remember when I was in the military, they told us back then when you had our uniforms, they said you're not supposed to starch it. Because the starch is supposed to break down the chemicals in the uniform and prevent it from giving you whatever protection that you were supposed to have from the uniform. And a lot of people used to get in trouble for it, but I didn't care. I used to put mine in the cleaners, and I used to make sure it was come back. So starch, you have to just kind of pull it apart because I want to get whatever chemical was in it, I want to get it out.
Yeah. I just, man, wow. It's stuff that you do, you don't really know the impact until you when you do research. Because if I could put that can of soda or that can of sugar and it breaks down like all the different gunpowder and the dirt and sand and everything else, my uniform, what else it is doing to my stomach? It is scraping my whole intestines out of its lining walls. I mean, like, wow, this thing is more deeper than most people think.
It is. That's why a lot of us have this acid reflux, and we have problems with digestion. In the archives, Gus did a show sometime, I believe it was last year. I believe his name was Curtis something or the other, where he was talking about the chemicals in the food. You might want to go back through the archives. I don't know when you started listening to the show, but I believe it was sometime in October or November when he was on the show, and he was speaking about the different chemicals in the foods. And that would be a good show for you to listen to see things, what it does to your inside, certain products.
Dr. Curtis Duncan.
Yeah, it was either October or November of last year.
October.
Okay,
October 2010. Mm-hmm. Good memory, 404.
Thank you. I just know it was so fascinating. I listened to his show because he had a webcast afterwards, a separate, and I paid and I went to listen to that also, and it was very informative, especially like the non-GMOs and the different labels to make sure that you go to if you have one of those smartphones, you can put that application on your phone so that when you go to these stores, you can make sure that your foods, the non-GMO foods, to make sure that you're getting things that doesn't have any chemicals in them. Because I was surprised when I heard about Whole Foods. I haven't shopped at them much lately, but as Gus said, with the FDA, these people are in cahoots with the big farms, so they would push anything through as long as it would pay them enough money. But that was a shocker to me when I saw that stuff on with Dr. Oz when he said with the apple juice, because I used to be a big fan of apple juice, and Mott's is a brand that I used to buy quite frequently. But I never heard of Apple and Eve. That might be something on the West Coast that y'all have. Mott's and Minute Maid, of course, I use that, and Juicy Juice. Those are the three brands that I know I normally buy.
I mean, where's our Whole Foods? Where's the black-owned Whole Foods, or our own apple juice made by a black company?
And make your own. If you get you a juicer and you just get all your fruits, you go to bring it home and clean it off really well and put it in your juicer, then at least you know what you're drinking. But if y'all get a chance, just go on Dr. Oz's website and pull it up, and you will be able to see the information there for yourself. So So you can imagine if this is a national brand, imagine what the off-market brand looks like the store brands.
B.H. Rasta, he put in the chat room, if you're looking for constructive information on health foods, naturalnews.com. He said that's a good site to check out, naturalnews.com.
Okay, I'll go ahead and save that to my favorites.
Yeah. Dr. Layla Africa, I think that's a good resource as well. Mr. Ishangi, he has on his website a really good article that Dr. Layla Africa wrote, and it's Junk Food and Culture. Junk Food and Culture. If you do a site search on Mr. Ishangi's website, theghettotimes.com, you'll find that report. Just a quick paragraph. It's African people must attach culture to food. Historically, African people ate only whole foods. No white sugar, no bleached wheat flour, no sodas, no fried foods, no yeast, no vinegar, no salted food, etc. In other words, junk food is not African food. Junk food is European culture's food. Only a dysfunctional black person finds pleasure in junk food and junk culture. A black person that is off their African Whole Foods diet is off their culture. In other words, to be off your diet is to be off your culture. And he goes from there, but that's Dr. Africa. He's been a guest on the program. I think he has a lot of constructive information about what racist man and racist woman are doing to us just with the food that we put in our body. Check that out. It's on Mr. Ishangi's website, theghettotimes.com. The name of the report again, Junk Food and Culture. We have about 10 left in the program. If anybody wants to share anything, feel free. I'll mute my line, and we'll be back on Monday. Next progress, Monday evening, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. And, I'll mute my line.
Hey, Gus, did you ever get in touch with Mark Ryder? You said you were going to try and get him to come back for part 2.
I forgot. I have days off. I'll put that on my list for what I shall be doing in the next 3 days off. Yes, I will get in touch. Mark, is it Riding? Mark Riding?
Mark Riding.
Yeah, I will get in touch with him. He, for those who don't know, he was on the program October of 2009, and his mother-in-law adopted a white child, and he and his wife, they are vetted also as caretakers of this white child. When he was on the program, she was 10. The white girl, Katie's her name, that they are taking care of. And I think it would be interesting to hear what's I think she should be 12 now, so she might be having some interesting dating stories to share. So yes, I'll follow up on that over the next 3 days.
Is Justice still on the line?
She can hear you, I suspect.
Oh, okay. I was going to ask her
how
I
read that article earlier, and it was saying about like the donut, and it has that.
Hello, can I be heard?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Oh, okay. Go. Sorry. You can keep. Go ahead.
No, I didn't mean to interrupt the caller from Florida. I was going to ask.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Your schooling and your music lessons were coming along. Are you learning anything interesting?
I haven't been going to band because it's public school, so and I've been doing a lot of programs, and I've been doing homeschool, so I'm taking a break from that, and then I'm still trying to figure out how my plans are going to go.
Okay. Well,
go ahead.
I said it's still early in the year, you still have until next year in the spring or whatever to see what directions you want to go in.
Yeah, but I was thinking like I want to play the oboe, so instead of the flute, I want to play like the oboe, which it's like the clarinet, but it's like it sounds a little bit squeakier.
Okay. You played it before?
No, but I've seen like other people play it.
Well, you might try go to one of these music shops and try it out and see how you like it, how it feels holding it. And
yeah. The caller from Florida, is it? Or you can you can go ahead. Sorry for Or is are you done speaking? If so, then yeah. Because I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh no, that's okay, man. Keep on talking. I was just saying that what Gus' article, what he was saying is like I read it, and it's like how they were talking about like the donut and the way that they described the donut and stuff. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to eat it. I haven't eaten a donut a long time, but I'm just staying away from.
RPO.
I'm talking about, yeah.
The gluten that they have in that thing, man. It has lard too, because it's fried in lard.
It's just one big old fat thing. I mean, just one big old thing of sugar. I mean, it has. I mean, I remember when I used to eat it, and I get mad, hungry after eating it, and I was like, that don't make no sense. It should fill me up, but no, it just makes me even more hungry, more crazy. And I said, I might as well just eat a balanced meal, and usually that just remedy.
Yep, we all had the donut addictions until I found out what it's made of, especially when I found out it's cooked in pig fat. So I said, nope.
Let's see. Okay. I just have to say, it's getting pretty late over here. I'm gonna have to sign off. Everybody have a good night.
Good night, Jeff.
Okay. Yeah, and I hope we will replace white supremacy with justice before just replace white supremacy with justice. Just try. That's all you gotta do is just try. So, yep, good night. And,
good night.
Yep.
Did you hear the show on last night? I have to listen to that. I've caught up so far, except for the one yesterday. So the one from the UK. So I'll have to listen to that to get caught up. But it sounds like it was pretty interesting. I started listening to it until my computer crashed. So I'll have to go back and start it over.
Mr. Henry. Make sure I recognize Mr. Henry. He was on that program yesterday, joining us from the UK. Longtime investor and frequent poster on the C.O.W.S Facebook page. He was just posting some videos as this program was rolling. I also wanted to throw in the bell was for a reason. Mr. Ishangi, he has a report where he's talking about the symbolism of donuts represent. I won't even tell you what it's represent. You can go watch the video, but that cowbell was for those donuts. I'll leave it at that. You can go check out his site, theghettotimes.com.
Oh, Cree had a program tonight because I got an email that said she had a program, or was that one of her rebroadcasts that she was putting up?
See the title of it before I would know. I have to look at the title.
Something. What's the name of the Paul Farmer or something? Paul Smith. I think was the name of the author, the person.
Looks like Paul Kersey. I'm saying Paul Kersey.
Yeah, it says Paul Smith on the email that I got.
Well, one of them, Paul. I've seen Paul Kersey. She's seen Paul Smith. Looks like there was a program. I'm not sure why the name thing. I might have got the incorrect post. I might have, my information might be off. But this is showing Paul Kersey. It's saying he does a blog, stuff black people don't like. You can check cre7.wordpress.com, cre7.wordpress.com, and check to see. I might have incorrect information. I'm not sure, just to verify which guest, what his name is, and I'm sure it will be constructive, counter-racist, evolving engineer.
Okay, I see the gentleman that if marriages are for white people only, I see you have him scheduled to be on the show.
Pam requested him as well. Trojan Horse. TrojanHorse1.com. Pam, co-author of Black Love is a Revolutionary Act. She also heard about, I don't remember his name off top, I think his last name is Banks, the black male who wrote this book, Is Marriage for White People? She also wanted to hear more from him.
Well, he's been making the rounds because I heard him on another radio show earlier in the week.
We are going to call it a broadcast. Should be back on Monday evening, 8 p.m. I will. I'm only not giving the guest name out just because I'm waiting for the confirmation. But the guest suggested the time, so we should be good. Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, and 5 p.m. Pacific. It'll be a non-white person. I'll fill out all the descriptions and what have you as soon as I get the confirmation, but it should be a non-white person who should be a lot less confused about white supremacy. That would be this Monday, September the 19th, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, context of white supremacy. Please visit Mr. Ishangi's website. I think it's very constructive. He has a lot of great articles, video articles as well, where you can, see great visual along with just constructive information on white supremacy, nutrition, lots of different subject matters. The address again, theghettotimes.com. theghettotimes.com, and is in the description. You should be able to copy it, paste it, or click it. We will be back next week. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Share the links if you think the program is constructive, and definitely stay away from white people, white sugar, all toxic. Replace white supremacy with justice as soon as possible, and I don't like talk shoe either. Cal signing out.